Born and raised in East Nashville, Tennessee, Jessica Watkins trained as an actor at the American Academy of Dramatics in Los Angeles before moving to New York City in 2009 to pursue stand-up comedy. Looking for an adventure and stage time, Watkins hit the road in 2014 on a walking stand-up tour. Her feature-length docu-comedy, Jessica Watkins' Specialish, of which she shot, wrote, directed, and produced, follows the walk across America and lasted 8 months, spanning from Delaware to California, where she performed stand-up comedy and lived off the generosity of strangers. Named exceptional by the New York Times and 11th Best Comedy Special of 2021 by Paste Magazine, Specialish is now available on all streaming and on-demand platforms. And here's a trailer of it right now.
When people ask what you do, you say I'm a stand-up comedian, but what you know is that you're a waitress.
Approximately 12 people a year attempt to walk across America, like half of them make it. They don't die. They give up or they like find themselves or whatever.
In this era, you have to have more than just comedy. You need something to get noticed.
I'm gonna start walking across America. Everything's fine. I've been training.
We're actually learning this the day of.
I mean, I'm assuming she's camped before.
Well, that's what I would assume, too.
In the studio with us right now, Jessica Watkins, who is walking across America, is bringing awareness to herself.
Myself. Hopefully I won't die if you see me on the side of the street honking the girl with the neon vest pushing a cart down the road.
Aren't you afraid to be on the road?
I can't let fear of like the unknown stop me from doing things, you know?
I know, shocker, we do it. Women are walking these days, sometimes even alone.
Be careful.
I will.
Because pretty girls walking.
It's not exactly the vision that I had.
I'm a little nervous. I didn't think I was going to make it to the town I was going to by the time it got dark.
Maybe I could have practiced one time with the cart full of things.
Gotta build a set. Let's build a set. Got nothing but time. You can do this.
This is never gonna end.
These shows will kill someday when they have a real punchline.
I told myself if I wasn't making money in the biz with between 6 months and a year after graduating from school, I would move on. Look at me now.
The American Patriot is a cool thing. They're like, God bless America, greatest country the world's ever known. I'm like, yeah, I know, I'm walking across it. And then they're like, I would not do that.
Can't wait to talk to Jessica Watkins. Jessica, come on in.
Hello.
Hello there, Jessica. So much to talk about. Tell me about growing up in Tennessee. What prompted you to go into comedy from Tennessee?
Well, you know, you gotta laugh at things. Nashville's a pretty cool town, and that's where I grew up. And there's the whole country music scene there, but I wasn't, my grandfather moved there to be a country music songwriter. So he had that kind of like, passion of getting out of his small town, and he moved to the big city of Nashville. And I think I like to think that that's kind of like where I got my ambition to leave Nashville when I moved to California to go to acting school. But I think really it was just attention. Like I just wanted attention, and making people laugh seems like, you really get the hook and get the attention. So
what were you doing in Tennessee before you moved to California?
Well, I moved to California when I was 18. So I was in school, but I grew up going, doing theater, and I was played sports, and, was just like a pretty active kid. And then, I just really felt like moving out of Tennessee. I got accepted into acting school in LA. I'd been there one other time. I hadn't really traveled outside of Tennessee, but I made the move to California. What
did your family think about that at only 18?
Yeah, they have always been very supportive. They knew that I was kind of going to do it one way or another. And so they could either support me in that or, and help me to, succeed. And I think that, or they could, whatever the alternative to that is. So I think that they, they decided to, though it wasn't probably like the greatest idea to them. And of course they would have rather me just stayed home and nested with them forever. They knew that it was like something that I really wanted. So they've always been really good about supporting me. And yeah, that's something I can be very thankful for.
Tell me about that school you attended.
Yeah, so it's in the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. It's like a proper acting conservatory, and kind of going through that made me realize that I wasn't like a leading lady, and I still really loved getting a laugh and loved character acting. And that's more, I started auditioning in LA, and through that process, I really got into writing for myself. And that's when I started performing, and I did stand up for the first time. And I was like, just really taken by that. You didn't have to depend on anyone else. You didn't have to get cast by someone, you were just doing your own thing. And I really enjoyed that. And again, you're the only person, so you get all the attention. So,
how old were you when you started stand up?
It was about 4 years out of school. So I was like 22 maybe. And I had just started doing stand-up before I decided to move to New York, because it seemed like, New York City, it's the iconic stand-up capital of the world. So
how did you get the gumption to go from California to New York? I know you said was the Comedy Central of the world, but still, that's a long ways.
Yeah, I don't know. Like when I look back, there's some big decisions I've made in my life. And I think I just have like a trust in the unknown, whether it's naively or not. I've just really always liked change and adventure. And I feel like when you put yourself in a new environment, you can really change who you are in a way, and recreate yourself. And I've always enjoyed making those kind of big changes in my life, I guess, because it's like a reset,
How did you land in New York? What was your first experiences there?
Oh my gosh. So the night before I moved to New York, I was going to stay with a friend in Brooklyn until I found a place. And I went bowling with a bunch of friends in LA. And this friend of a friend said, oh, you should just stay in my apartment. I'm going to be doing this. He was an actor. And he's like, I'm going to be doing this play for a few months. You should just stay in my apartment and pay me whatever you can afford. And the apartment was in Soho on Prince Street. But I didn't know anything about New York. I'd only been there one other time before. So I literally got to Prince Street in Soho and was like, this is scary. I was like, New York is so different from LA, if you don't know it, you're just like, I don't know. And now when I go there, I'm like, this is like the nicest part of New York City to live in. But so I got really, really lucky with that experience. Yes. And I stayed with them. Was able to stay in that apartment for a few months. And it was actually right around the corner from the Comedy Cellar, which happens to be one of the best places to see stand-up comedy. And at the time they had this deal where if you gave them your email address, you got they would let you in for free. So I would just create a different email address every other day. And I would go and watch stand-up for free, and, not even realizing that I was seeing, just some of the best stand-up that you can see. And that was kind of my first stepping into the stand-up world in New York City.
Who were some of those people you saw? Do you remember some of are they big stars now?
Yeah, there were a lot. Now I can't articulate who they were, but it's like all the faces that you see that are still performing there, just all of those, whoever was big in that, 15 years ago that you saw on TV, it's like that seemed to be where they would come late at night,
In that trailer, it said every stand-up is a waitress. So were you waitressing at the time as well?
Yeah, I was. Yeah. I got a job at a pizza place when I first moved there, and I worked on and off there for like a decade. So I made some of my best friends there, and I met people that helped to fund my comedy special. And I think I was actually realizing that I think it's the only job that I've applied to in New York City, like the only job like that. And then I got it, and I just stayed working there for a very long time.
What were some of your first gigs in New York?
Well, I started hosting an open mic at Eastville Comedy Club, and that's where I started, making friends, and sort of came up with comedians. And, it's just such I feel like moving from LA to New York, I had just started doing stand-up, and New York City is a really interesting place for you to just be starting to do stand-up. It's tough. And so it's hard to find your way and your footing. And there's so many different worlds that you can exist in. And so I even, I still feel like now I'm just still exploring, and like I meet people that I'm like, how have I never met you? And you're comic in New York, so many people. So yeah.
I mean, you moved from Tennessee to LA to New York, and then you decide, I'm going to walk across the country.
Yeah.
How did that idea evolve? So
when I lived in LA, I met this guy named Aaron Huey, who's an amazing photographer. And when I met him, he was doing a Nat Geo thing. And we went to play like there's this three-par golf course in Los Feliz in LA. And we met some friends there, and we were going to play, and he played the whole game with a putter, and he wore these gold shoes, and he's just this really like kind of strange character. And then I heard that he had walked across America, and this was like the craziest idea. It was so interesting to me. And, we talked about it. He ended up becoming a friend. But the idea just I never really thought it was something I would do, but the idea just kind of stuck around. And then moving to New York, it's, such a walking city. And actually where I lived in Alphabet City and where I worked at that pizza shop, it was like a half-hour walk. And I would just walk every day. And during that time, really, I don't know, like walking became inspiring to me. It was right around the time when people were doing crowdfunding. So Kickstarter was just starting, and GoFundMe and those kind of things. So I felt like I wanted to try and fund my own project. And in order to get people to give you money, you need like a great idea. And this like walking kept coming up. And so I was thinking maybe I'd walk to Tennessee, maybe I'd walk through Tennessee. And then at that point, it's like, well, I might as well just do the whole country if I'm going to do that. And so it just sort of started as this seed, and then, evolved into Specialish, which it took me a very long time from the inception of the idea to making the film, which came out in 2021. And the walk was in 2014. So even just that time period of actually making the film, recording my special where I sort of tell the story of the walk, and that's what makes the documentary. The whole process was just such a huge learning experience. And it was just, like the snowball effect.
When you set out, were you planning on documenting it for a film?
Yeah, that was part of the Kickstarter. So I did do a Kickstarter. I was able to raise, in total, I raised over $30,000 for the project.
Whoa.
And then luckily got a production company who helped fund the special that I filmed, and the film Glasshouse Productions helped with that. But the film, the other part of the Kickstartering was people like a tangible thing, they want. So it seemed only natural, if I'm going to be on the road, like I should be documenting what I'm doing. And then I could give the people that donated something for, like a tangible thing. And so that's where the idea of the film came up. And luckily I had a really good friend, Lorena at the time, who was a filmmaker. And she kind of like whipped me into shape of like, this is what you would need. And, this is how you would do it. And I was, I reached out to a camera company. I got a free camera, and then I did like a crash course, just had someone, I never shot anything before. I had someone show me how to use it. And then Lorraine showed me all the technical things. And so I would film on the walk, and I would send her footage back. She would organize it and then resend the drives to me. And we were just always kind of circulating this footage. And by the end of the trip, there's, over 300 hours of footage that I gathered. A lot of it just meaningless, silent footage of me on the side of the road somewhere. But in the end, there was all this footage, and I decided to take that. And the idea was pretty much very similar to my original idea. Originally, it was that you would sort of see the evolution of a joke. So, you would be able to see me trying it out on the road, and then the special would be this sort of polished end product. And I think in a way that is how the documentary turned out, but it's way, way more of a personal story than a stand-up special even. It really, like, I had to, when you do something like that, it's so intense, like emotionally, physically. You're not like writing like these, crazy jokes. It's not like the jokes are flowing. I don't know what I thought that trees and open highways was going to be like really inspirational for writing jokes, but it ended up being a very personal story, and just really exploring why the hell I would do something like that. And probably, to go back and answer your questions, why I moved from Nashville to LA and from LA to New York. And it really like made me look at that and explore those ideas.
What was your scariest moment throughout the journey?
There were a lot of scary moments. Really the scariest moments were just the physical danger of walking on highways. And, some roads were beautiful, and you'd have an amazing moment where you're like, I'm walking through the desert and it's just beautiful and no one's around. And I'm like, this is what I envisioned for the walk. But the majority of it was, we don't live in a very walkable country, and getting in and out of cities was very sketchy, like with just vehicles. So I would be walking head on into traffic. And if the road ended, if the sidewalk ended, then it ended. There was nothing I could do about that, and that was scary. So, and, seeing people, like, you could see that they were on their phones or distracted, like that you couldn't make eye contact with someone. That was, I feel like there were a lot of brushes and that felt very close calls in that way. And just the trusting of the unknown, like, being in the middle of nowhere, especially when you get to the middle of the country, and you have no choice. Like, you have to keep going, and you don't know where you're going to stay, and you don't know what's going to happen, and you don't know who you're going to meet next, but you have to keep going. And those were scary moments, but it was also the most, well, as you see in the film, that's when the most serendipitous things would happen. Just, after those scary moments and I pushed through, something would happen that made you feel like, that, like there's a reason for this, like there's a purpose or a reward, or I don't know even how to, it was like there were so many moments like that really felt like somehow the universe was just kind of looking out for me after pushing through some tough stuff. And those things are really cool.
Throughout the journey, you met hundreds, possibly thousands of people. Are you keeping in touch with any of them?
Oh, yeah, I am. I keep in touch with a lot of them. I mean, there's something about that experience that you can just meet someone for an afternoon. And because I was being so vulnerable, I felt like people would be vulnerable with me. Wow. And they would tell me things, like they would tell me secrets, and they would tell me about themselves, and they would really be, they would tell me about their lives, or about, I think, doing something like that. Also, it's like people tell you about the thing that they always wanted to do, that maybe they couldn't, or maybe they still want to, or maybe it inspired them down the road to do the crazy thing that they always wanted to do, or just, follow through on that. I mean, that idea, that spark of an idea that you have. Because like I said, it took so long for me to make this happen. And there were so many roadblocks, but I just kept pushing through. And I met a lot of, thank goodness, like social media was around. Instagram had just pretty much started when I started the walk. And I still like keep touch with a lot of people through social media. Actually, this one guy I met, he helped me because I ended up injuring my knee, which you see at the beginning of the film. And I was stuck at this campground in Delaware for a few days. And he came and would bring me, he got word that I was there from the park ranger. and because he used to walk in this park. And so he brought me food for like 3 or 4 days. We exchanged emails, and that was right around Easter. So every Easter I get an email from him just checking in to see how I'm doing. And he sends me a picture of the campground that I was at to tell me if someone's staying there and though, I don't know, just seeing people, I'm watching someone's kid, like, I'm like, oh my God, they're graduating high school. When I met them, they were just a kid, it's dozens and dozens of long lasting relationships.
Well, that's just fascinating. I love your perseverance. I just love that. What are you doing now?
Well, as I was showing you guys earlier, I do have this baby on the way. So that's a big thing I have going on. Another big adventure that I'm very excited about. So I'm nearing the end with that. And I'm kind of like focusing into this new mode of knowing that, I don't know how inspiring and what's going to come out of the baby, but I've been just trying to get up doing stand-up, been writing a lot of new material based on this. And I just feel like I'm kind of going into this next stage of life where things are changing, and I don't really know what's next. So I'm hoping to spend the next few months nesting with my baby. And then I'd love to continue producing projects, which is what I've been doing for the last few years. And recording another special soon.
Found you on the website Queerty. You were listed as a prominent LGBTQ plus comedian. How does that affect your comedy?
Especially on the walk, you're like, I'm doing stand-up, talking openly about myself, telling questionable jokes about myself. And, you're in the South or in the middle of America, and there's a fear element there, and then after that show, I'm just walking on the side of the road, or maybe the next day. And there was always sort of a fear in the back of my mind about that. And again, this was 9 years ago that I did the walk, but I was so pleasantly surprised in the places I went to. And maybe it's because when people come to see comedy, they are just coming with a more open mind. But I really felt like people were receptive and let themselves laugh, even if maybe it was outside of their comfort zone. And that was something that felt really rewarding to me. And in the film, I just decided to put everything, about myself and the jokes that I was telling about being queer or abortion or whatever it might be, political things. I really put it all out there in the documentary, and I just feel really proud. And I've had pretty great feedback with it. So yeah.
Today, there's a lot of animosity towards the drag, the gay, the queer community. Do you feel any of that anytime you're out today?
Yeah, I just find it so, again, like thinking about the South, just because I'm from there. So I often, that's just where I come from, is like this comparison, especially when it comes to drag. It's so specific of a thing for people to be upset about. It just seems quite ridiculous. And then I think about, many ways that people costume themselves in the South, whether it's like child beauty pageants or,
Yes.
uber masculine, whatever the hell they're doing. I don't know. It just seems so, so interesting. The impetus on it is just bizarre to me, really. Especially with what's specifically happening in Tennessee. When I was there, I guess it was around Thanksgiving, actually. It was right before they were passing this anti-drag bills. And in one day I saw 3 drag shows. One was like a brunch, and then there was like a midday, and then it was, every person that comes to the show has a smile on their face. They're having a great time. It's so uplifting. Who is not having an amazing time at a drag show? And it just is so clear that the people against it have either, never experienced it or just are suppressing something within themselves.
How true. How true. Jessica Watkins, thank you so much for talking to us today.
Thanks for having me.
It's fascinating. And I said, I love your perseverance. You just get up and do stuff, whether it be moving across country a couple times, walking across country, or having a baby. That has to be one of the scariest things.
Yeah.
Well, good luck to you and your baby and your future projects.
Thank you.
Projects. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Amber.